Okay, it's recording.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to our virtual February Housing Commission meeting. We will start with public comment on items not on the agenda, and we have one public commenter, that is Tiffany. Go ahead, Tiffany. Tiffany, you are muted.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. This is kind of my first experience doing something like this, but I thought I'd put my voice out there. But I wanted to thank the Housing Commission for holding this meeting. I no longer live in the immediate area, but I did used to live at 25th and Grant from 2017 to 2021. And I also previously lived in an apartment in Crystal City. I still care deeply about this community, and I also appreciate everyone's hard work that they put into this. But I've spoken with some of my old neighbors, and I've reviewed the Civic Association's comments, and many of the people in the community still oppose this project, but it continues to move forward. I guess my first comment would be that school overcrowding is a major concern. By 2027, Oak Ridge.
Tiffany, 1 second. Sorry, can you just clarify which project you're talking about?
I'm sorry, this is the Melwood project.
Thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
Is that okay?
Go ahead. Yep.
Sorry. Thanks. So Oak Ridge, Gunston, and Wakefield schools, they're projected to exceed capacity. They're already, I think, like at 125% capacity. And in 2019, there was a boundary rezoning, and it disrupted many families. There's still no clear plan for additional elementary and middle school capacities. And second, Arlington's housing need is not in this area. More than 1,500 rental units are already available in Pentagon City and Crystal City, including 600 two-bedroom and 75 three-bedroom units. And there was the 2022 sector plan from Arlington County that outlines 342 CAF units with more planned. So if density and CAF units are already being directed there, why force it here where infrastructure is lacking? Third, the revitalization area designation, it's misleading. This area is not blighted. Melwood provides jobs, and there's market rate and affordable housing options that already exist nearby. This designation is being used to secure tax credits rather than reflecting the actual community need. Fourth, this project contradicts Arlington's effort to reduce traffic on 23rd Street, which is where it's located, and it's like the main artery for the single family homes. And it's also where students would be walking to school every day. So the 22202 study shows that traffic's declined in this area on this street for over 40 years, despite the development doubling in Pentagon City and Crystal City. This project adds density in a car-dependent area, and it reverses all the carefully planned traffic improvements. When I lived in Crystal City in an apartment with 2 young kids, I could walk and get groceries and run errands. But when I was at 25th and Grant, the nearest grocery store was a mile away, and I had to take a car for basic errands. Finally, the community supports housing for disabled residents and aligning with Melwood's mission, which employs and trains disabled people. But only 30% of the units are designated for that purpose. And if it were the true goal, why not increase the percentage instead of pushing through this broad density project? So I urge this commission to listen to the residents, review Arlington's own studies, and consider the impact on schools, infrastructure, and traffic. This project should be reconsidered until clear plan is in place.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Alex, any other public comment?
No, not at this time.
Okay. So next on the agenda, we have approval of the notes from the last meeting. Do we have any recommended changes or edits to the notes?
Yeah, Callan, I have Joe Ventura. I have a change on page 4, third paragraph from the bottom. Next to the last line of that paragraph, bus tour so that add county before residents. County residents understand.
Okay.
You got that?
Alex, you got it?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. I had a change to on the first page under the HUD Fair Housing Assistance Program information. It says Kellen McBeth said the county has passed a resolution to explore becoming a fair housing assistance program. So that was the county had passed the fair housing plan, which said that they would explore becoming a fair housing assistance program as opposed to a resolution.
Okay, I can make that change.
Thank you. Any other changes to the notes? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the notes with the amendments?
I move we adopt the notes.
Thank you, Joe. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. One of those. Any objection? The notes are approved. Thank you. Next item on the agenda. Alex, if you could pull the agenda back up, I'm sorry.
Yes, the next item is Crystal House 6, but I can pull it up.
Okay, there we go. That's fine. I just didn't have the agenda up in front of me because you had so helpfully provided it on the screen. We can go ahead. I assume it's County speaking first on that.
Sure is.
Okay, great.
Thanks. 1 second. Let me pull the presentation up. Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Chris on behalf of the Housing Division to present on Crystal House 6, which is a proposed 9 and 4% tax credit project for this March and the associated county AHIF subordinated debt allocations. So as a reminder, the background on this for those of you who may just need a quick refresher, this site was acquired by Washington Housing Conservancy in 2020. Amazon, an affiliate of Amazon, acquired the entitled development rights to the infill parcels, which had been entitled previously. Those were further assigned with conditions to the county. County secured development partners, True Ground and EYA, and both development partners, EYA and True Ground, have been working through pre-development and as well as some early development activities in regards to forwarding the CH3 and CH7 and 8 projects. So CH6 is a proposed 80-unit dedicated senior affordable housing building that would be the second phase of development in the Crystal Houses infill site. It's a total of $13.8 million in proposed AHIF debt across both projects. And as I mentioned, this is dedicated senior, so it has a number of requirements and other things incumbent on it as part of Virginia Housing's requirements for senior housing. So this illustrative map shows the CH6 building within the context of where it would be going roughly just north of the Crystal Houses, the existing Crystal Houses 1, adjacent to 18th Street and within approximately 2.5 blocks of the Crystal City Metro and a number of other amenities which you all are familiar with. The financing overview of both the 9 and the 4 is the 13.8 in AHIF allocations, and I'll note that True Ground has held that number for over a year now, penciling about $6 million in subsidized Virginia housing funds, about $6 million in DHCD state funds, just under $1 million of deferred developer fee, and 3.1 in other subsidized sources identified, leveraging $3 for every dollar in county AHIF loan funds. So showing the current sources and uses for the project, largest source being tax credit equity on the 9% side, which is 36 unit. And then the uses are pretty standard, construction being the largest, and soft costs and financing costs. On the 4% side, you're looking at about 12 million in tax credit equity. This is the 44 unit component project, and about $20 million in construction costs for a TDC of about 29 million currently estimated. So the loan terms, up to a 40-year term with a 2-year interest-only construction period. The average rate across both loans is about 0.5%, and then the standard 0% during the construction year period. That's a 2-year construction year period on CH6. I think that's a holdover from CH3. So community process, this project went through the minor site plan amendment process in 2023. There were a number of community meetings during that process. I know True Ground has met with Aurora Highlands as recently as January 2024. We have our actions this evening, county board scheduled for later this month, and then assuming everything goes well, tax credit application in mid-March 2025. The overall development timeline, assuming True Ground secures tax credits in this 2025 round, would be looking at roughly 2026, mid-2026 for securing the tax exempt 4%, and moving towards construction closing on both projects with a completion in early 2028. So with that, the recommendations we're moving forward are to allocate the 13.8 million in AHIF for the proposed loans to support the construction of CH6. And with that, I will conclude and turn it over to our colleagues at True Ground.
Hello. Okay. How is everyone? I'm Haley Norris. I'm Director of Real Estate Development at True Ground Housing Partners, formerly known as APA, Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing. For those of you who have known us kind of in the past, we rebranded on the later end of last year just to reflect the fact that we're both in Arlington and active more regionally as well. But we are the same organization, same mission, same mission of expanding affordable housing in the area. So I'll skip over some of these slides just in the interest of time because Chris covered some of them, but I'm glad to go back and cover anything that I might have missed. And my colleague, Danny Ross, is here with you as a commissioner, so he can help answer any questions at the end of this. So we're here tonight for Crystal House 6. We have brought the overall Crystal House redevelopment to the commission a few times. Like Chris said, mostly Crystal House 3 has kind of been the first phase to move forward. And now we're moving on to the second affordable phase, which is Crystal House 6. Here's the site overview. Again, I won't belabor this because Chris talked through it, but I'm glad to answer any questions about the overall redevelopment. One thing I'll maybe just kind of clarify quickly, because I feel like this comes up on a few different meetings, is we, in partnership with EOYA, are developing these buildings kind of on the outside of the site in phases. Right now, that's all surface parking. These two bigger buildings in the middle are existing. They will continue to be owned by Washington Housing Conservancy, so they're not going anywhere. They remain, and we are just adding to the site a more mixed-use, mixed-income property. So this is Crystal House 6. It's going to be 80 affordable senior units. We're here tonight for the AHIF request that will help us move forward, especially for the 9% tax credit round, which is competitive. And the deadline for that, I think, is actually a month from today in March. So assuming we're successful there, we will keep moving forward towards a 4% tax credit application, looking to start construction and close on the project in spring, summer of next year, with completion in summer of, I think, earlier, that's maybe a little bit outdated, but it should be a little bit before summer of 2028 on the earlier side of that year. So, but here's a picture of the building. This is 18th Street right here. Some of the amenities that we'll have are a community room, activity room. There is, you can see in this image, there's a front porch, there's a covered pickup and drop-off area, so the ground will stay dry, nothing will be slippery as residents are coming in and out of the building. You can't see it from this angle, but there's also a back porch area that's got some amenity space, barbecue. We really are working with our design team to make sure there are opportunities for socialization to make sure that the seniors who are living here are not feeling isolated or lonely. To that end, we also have resident services that will be provided on site. We'll have some permanent supportive housing units in the building, computer room, fitness room, a lot of really intentionally designed amenity space. As far as accessibility, so that was here. Actually, let me go back for 1 second. So this is the entrance, 18th Street, and here coming into the site. This is kind of our main entrance. Here's the entrance right on 18th Street that you can also enter the building from. So the whole building will be designed to meet Virginia Housing's universal design standards. 10% of the units will be ANSI Type A. We talked about the covered pickup and drop off. But here's some of the other features that are really designed for seniors. There will be a unique color scheme for each floor in the building to help with wayfinding, as well as natural lighting in the corridors. This building also has some really nice balcony space that a lot of the residents will enjoy, so we're excited about that. One thing that's really unique about this project, aside from the fact that it's, I think, one of the first affordable senior projects in the county in a really long time, is that it's really deeply affordable. All of the units here are going to be affordable at or below 50% of the area median income, which is a really important income targeting range, especially for seniors, because a lot of them are on fixed incomes. So this is a really critical need to meet. So we'll also have 10% of the building, that's 8 units, affordable at 30% of the area median income. Most of them are 1 bedrooms. We'll have 9 2-bedrooms as well. Chris talked through the budget, so I'm glad to answer any questions, but it'll be a 9%, 4% hybrid, split close to 50-50 between the two for financing purposes. And we'll be pursuing that 9% tax credit award next month. So that was what I had. I'm glad to answer any questions at this point. I'm glad to go back and cover any of those in more detail.
Thank you, Haley, and thank you, Chris. Alex, I think we have public comment first on this item. Yes, it looks like we have Audrey and Alice. Let's start with Audrey.
Okay. Let me take my glasses on, glasses off, doesn't really matter. Thank you for allowing me to speak about Crystal House 6. I am very excited about it. Haley covered a lot of the details that I think are important, so I'm just going to reiterate some of them. But the need for senior housing in Arlington is critical. Older adults are the fastest growing population in the county and will be for decades to come. And these are the ones most directly impacted by rising prices and the cost of living in Arlington and elsewhere, because most of them are on fixed income. She didn't mention the fact that there'll be 8 permanent supportive housing units for seniors below the 30% AMI, which is a real gift to the county. Crystal House 6 will have a number of features that benefit all older adults, that are like the on-site resident services that is not typically found in an affordable housing residence that's open to all ages. So that'll provide a level of safety, a level of information, a lot of resources for them. Good transportation. The covered entrances are going to be a big deal, because you don't really want an 80-year-old standing in front of a bus, entrance getting soaked. But I also want to mention that I went on a tour with Joanna Shin from then APA, now True Ground, to see the Oakwood Meadow Senior Residences, which is in Fairfax County. And this is similar to what they're going to build Crystal House 6 to look like. And I would strongly suggest to the Housing Commission and anyone else who's interested to go take a look. It's very impressive. The attention to details, the finishes, the flooring, the lighting, the fact that it's wide enough everywhere for walkers and wheelchairs, there's railings. They've really done a great job of not only making it fully accessible, but making it attractive. And I think it will be a wonderful place for seniors. And so I really would suggest that you go take a look at what will hopefully have in Arlington in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Next, we have Alice.
Good evening. I'm Alice Hogan. I work with the Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance. I run the Arlington Alliance here in our county. And just to reiterate so much of what's been said by the staff, the applicant, and Audrey from the Commission on Aging as well, that this is a remarkable project. We're very happy to support it. The need for senior housing is growing exponentially as that population is the fastest growing demographic in our county. Just, similar to the nation, the silver wave, we're really experiencing it here in the county, and we don't have accessible, small, affordable units that will meet the needs of older adults. So this is a fabulous addition of 80 units toward that end. The deeply affordable component that was mentioned previously is crucial because of the fixed income status that so many seniors experience. And as rents go up and costs go up, they're left with very, very few options. So it's so exciting to have something brand new that is so designed to meet people's needs, on-site resident services, social opportunities, walkability, ground floor entrance, so many things that I think a lot of seniors who, once this is open, will have an opportunity to live here, will thoroughly enjoy this experience in their golden years. So it's a wonderful addition to our, it will be, to our portfolio of affordable units in the county. And I just encourage you all to take a good look at the aspects and support this project that Arlington can be a part of in a very unique situation that was, kind of created by Amazon and their partners, that we're able as a county to take advantage of this in a section of Arlington where we haven't had, new affordable senior housing in decades. So it's really a great step forward, and I congratulate True Ground and thank you, Housing Commission, for your consideration.
Thank you, Alice. I think that is the end of public comment on Crystal House 6, unless I'm mistaken if there's anyone else who wanted to speak on Crystal House 6. Okay. So now opening it up for discussion and questions from the commissioners. I just wanted to say first that I really like this project, and I especially appreciate that it has the 10% of units that are deeply affordable, 30% of AMI and below, and that even the units outside of that are at the 50% AMI level instead of the 60%, which is typical. I did have a question though, especially with this being senior housing, that there are not more type A accessible units on the property. I think that it just has the minimum amount. And I know there's universal design for all the units, but yeah, it was a little surprising that there's not more type A. I don't know, Haley or Chris, you could speak to that.
I can start. I mean, I think this is kind of what so the minimum actually, I believe, is 5%. So we are doing more than that required minimum per code. So it's double that. And I think one thing that does get us kind of a little bit of that way there is the universal design element, because that does include some features that are like wider bathrooms, roll-in workspaces. So there are some of those features that will be in every single unit. And then of course, we would provide accessibility features like as needed for, reasonable accommodations.
Oh, Chris, it looked like you came off mute to say something. But
No, I don't have anything to add. I think that's
okay.
Right on. Thank you, Haley.
And just for my clarification, how much more does it take to get a unit from universal design to type A accessible?
I don't know that I'm really able to answer that on the spot. If Danny, if you have any thoughts on that, or we can kind of follow up with feedback from an architect who's more in the details of that.
Yeah, it's a it's a much higher bar, and it does add a considerable amount of cost to the unit. And it's not something that you would really ever convert back. So there are challenges when you have too many of them on a project, and you're not matching them with the people who need them, right? If it's sitting vacant and your incoming tenant base doesn't need that unit, it's a very difficult one to fill, or can be. But we hear you, and we have been looking at kind of what we can do and what we can't do budget wise. But it's pretty tight. The project's small, and it's because it's an infill development site. It's very expensive, so the per door cost is, it's higher than we'd like it to be, and that there really aren't very many ways to control that, right? Because it's a tight site, small building. Um, there's very few opportunities to do a big value cut on a job this size.
Does True Ground offer financial asset? Like, so I know typically reasonable modifications are um, the the renter has to pay for those, as opposed to, the property owner. Does True Ground have any programs in place so that, like, if a resident or someone who wanted to be a resident here was looking for more type A versus just the universal design, or they needed more modifications made, um, is that something that, True Ground provides them with, you know, help, financial assistance for that, or is that still required out of pocket for residents who can't find a type A unit that's available?
I can follow up on that. I'm not sure offhand. Another thing I would mention is it's not a senior specific property, but we're also building, I would have to double check the numbers, but a bunch more type A units or accessible units right next door at Crystal House 3. So if there were really a need for someone who could not get one in this building, and we weren't able to like provide that next unit, there will be a significant number, because Crystal House 3 is, over 400 units. So a big chunk of that building actually will have accessible opportunities, and it is like literally right next door. So you'd still be on the same site.
The only thing to add is that Virginia Housing historically had a accessibility modification grant program under the community outreach program, under their REACH funding. I don't know if that program is still available, but that's targeted for low income, residents who need accessibility modifications. I'm also kind of broadly aware of some past data that the county had looked at the sort of discrepancy between the production of ANSI type A units, accessibility, and the actual need for those units. And I think, this could be one of the cases of, I think we hear it a lot, but really the need, we haven't necessarily seen that. And I don't have the current data in front of me, but I'm broadly aware of some of that. And UD goes a pretty long way. So any of the folks who aren't familiar with universal design should go check out some of those units.
Okay, thank you, and appreciate the follow-up, Haley, on some of the questions that I asked. And yeah, if there's a way just for like True Ground to see if there are programs available for like reasonable modification, funding for, because obviously these are all going to be low income seniors that are living there. I think just having that ready and on hand in case you do get those requests would be great. Next we have Joe.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Kellen, just for the hell of it, I'm young elderly. So I think young elderly or old elderly, the project is conceived is going to benefit no matter what. They're going to have the wider doors, the grab bars, the bathrooms. So people will be able to do their daily living requirements extremely well. I commend True Ground. I commend the county. The Wall Street Journal this week did a big article. I posted it on LinkedIn. It got 28,000 impressions. Senior housing, in addition to all of our other housing ills, is an extremely big issue. So I'm glad they're going forward with this project. I have one technical question for either Chris or Haley. What is the per unit development cost? These are 80 units. The gross, what would be the per unit development cost of this project? And I'm asking gross. I do understand with all the layering, it's different stuff, but I just wanted to have a ballpark.
Do you want me to I can take that one.
Go ahead, Haley. Yeah.
It's about 660,000 per unit, which is higher than we typically see because of the size of the project.
Okay, but just in comparison, and in this world, we're doing optic public relations. In LA, a homeless cube is like 900,000. So this is a rental unit for a person. It's 660,000 in a very high cost area. So I think that is a pretty good deal. One other question, and my question is, where in relationship is Melwood and Crystal 6?
I don't know if someone knows the exact distance, but they're not too far.
Okay.
You think it's half a mile, between half a mile and a mile, maybe?
Yeah,
I think it's less
is
than,
up
it's probably
23rd.
less than a mile, right? And I'm only saying this because I'm wondering, and I'd like to ask the public comment person, if Melwood were 100% elderly, would there be a concern?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Next, we have Brian. Brian, you're on mute.
First one. I do have one question on the.
Also,
aspect
Brian,
of
are you able to come on camera?
Yes. One second. Sorry, it's the signal at my apartment is kind of bad, so I've got it off to kind of conserve some bandwidth.
No worries. I think we're supposed to be on camera when we're speaking for our virtual meetings. But
okay,
go ahead, Brian.
All right, perfect. I just have one question about there's a digital section here, and it includes some information about providing courses and digital lessons there. This is the digital equity piece. I just wanted to get a little bit more information as to how that will be administered. So I see it's literacy programs, digital literacy programs in both Spanish and English. So I just wanted to know how that would happen.
So what our resident services team will typically do is kind of once the building is fully leased up, they'll survey residents, they'll get to know everyone, they'll survey residents, they'll get a sense of what those needs and interests are. And I think that's assuming there is some interest in digital literacy and all of that. And if bilingual were a need, they could absolutely work with. It might not be that team on site, but they would partner with someone in the county who could offer that. And I would imagine for this population, maybe it's some of the basic stuff like, emails and online safety and that kind of stuff. So I can, find out more about what they're doing at other properties, but if we have lots of partners throughout the county that we would work with to provide that training based on what the needs and interests of the residents are. And we'll have a small computer lab on site where we could host that. And I think we do this at other properties too. The resident services office is actually really close to the computer room, typically kind of intentionally. So if someone does need some assistance, someone could go like knock on the door and get some help kind of in real time.
Okay, that sounds good. I just wondered because it specifically says Spanish and English, and I guess a follow-up question, do you have a general idea of the kind of like linguistic breakdown of some of the units of your development here, so we have an understanding of, if someone needs additional resources, say in an Amharic, is that a capacity that you could readily build out?
I will find out what those demographics are. I'm not sure offhand of what languages we have offered programs in and kind of what those needs are. I'm glad to follow up with that.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Jason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, thank you. Just looking at the Arlington County Affordable Housing Indicators FY24, indicators 43 and 44 are showing that the number of senior housing units since 2010 and the senior CAFs since 2010 have been unchanged. Would this be the first building, the first new senior CAFs since 2010 when it
I think
opens.
at least, yeah, I think it's at Hunters Park, I think was the last new building, and that was about 20 years ago.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jason. So I know we're talking about, I think it's 13 million total in AHIP funds. Does the county have how much is left in AHIP if those funds were to be dispersed at this point?
So the county has the funds. This is an allocation, not a disbursement wouldn't happen until a closing. So so this is an allocation basically to be able to write the commitment such that it is firm enough for the tax credit application.
Or sorry, just obligation then. But essentially that money would be, I would assume, set aside for
I
this
think it is.
project, even if
Yeah.
yeah. So how much would be left in unobligated funds in AHIF?
I'm not privy to that. I don't know if anybody on the call is or has any of that data at their hands.
Doesn't look like it. If the county staff could get us those numbers, it's just helpful to know whenever there's an AHIF to, obligation, how much is left, and as we look at new projects.
Circle back internally. Thanks.
Thank you. I thought I saw another hand raised, but I don't. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I have a comment for Arlington Now if they're listening. I hope they advertise headline news with Jason's little research that this is the first elderly in whatever 14, 15 years. And then that maybe we can get credit with the Wall Street Journal of doing something. Thank you.
I think it would be 20 years. I think Hunters Park was 20 years ago. So.
Well, headline news. In True Ground, you guys have good PR operations. Let it rip.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay. Hearing none. So do I have a motion to approve the AHIF allocation, obligation? I don't know, whatever.
I move the motion.
Yep. For Crystal House 6. Thank you. Who is the second?
Margaret.
Okay, thank you. We'll do a roll call unless there's any other discussion before we proceed to the vote. Okay. Let's see. I vote yes. Katie?
Yes.
Commissioner Blake?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Ventrone?
Heck yes.
Commissioner Surface?
Yes.
Commissioner McGilvray?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
I would vote yes, but as project manager, I have to abstain.
Thank you for your ethical considerations. Commissioner Montgomery? No Anika tonight? Okay. And Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes.
Okay, it passes. Thank you very much, both to True Ground and the county for your presentation and for this project. And look forward to it moving forward.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have Melwood, which is also an action item for the site plan approval, I believe. And I'm not sure which county staff is going to kick that off.
So good evening, everyone. Alex McMillan. I will turn it over to the applicant and have them do a presentation before I go over the staff recommendation shortly. But I will turn it over to Josh and Taylor. Or is it Lauren?
Oh, hi, Alex. Sorry, it's
Lauren.
it'll be
it'll be me tonight. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Lauren Riley with Walsh Colucci. We represent the co-applicants for this project, which is Wesley Housing and Melwood. And tonight, joining us from Wesley Housing, we have Taylor Stout, and from Melwood, we have Scott Gibson. So they'll be able to jump in and answer some questions as needed at the during the discussion tonight. So before we kind of dive into the project details, I did want to provide a little bit of context as to where we are in the county, where we are in this public entitlement process. So you can see here the site outlined in pink where someone was asking a few minutes ago how close we are to the Crystal House 6 project. I did a quick back of the envelope calculation on Google Maps. It's about 0.6 miles. So, and we're also a stone's throw away from National Landing. We're within 0.6 miles of the Crystal City Metro Station. There's 9 bus stops within a quarter mile here. So really proximate to transit and proximate to the activity that's happening right now in National Landing. As you look onto your right here, a closer up view of the site, you can see this is at the former location of Nellie Custis School. Melwood's predecessor acquired this site back in 1981 through a land swap with Arlington County, where Arlington County had decommissioned Nellie Custis School and decided to give it to Melwood's predecessor in exchange for property that their predecessor had in Ballston, up near Ballston Exchange. And so they've operated here on this site since then, providing valuable services and programs to individuals with disabilities. As Melwood looks to the future and looks at upgrading their facilities to better meet the needs of their participants, they saw a really great opportunity here to leverage such a scarce resource in Arlington County, land, and not only provide new space for Melwood, but also to provide affordable housing and housing for persons with disabilities. So that's the great opportunity here with this site. We started this entitlement process a couple of years ago with a special general land use plan study that we filed in 2021. That was heard by the county board, accepted that study in May of last year. We pursued and then we began pursuing our 4.1 site plan that we filed in 2024. We've had our SPRC meetings and our online engagement in the fall of last year and winter. We just went to Planning Commission on Monday night, received unanimous recommendation of approval from Planning Commission. We'll head to County Board in a couple weeks. And so I'll walk you through now the proposed project. Here's a rendered site plan. Here's a rendered site plan image of the proposal. You can see here this building outlined in white. We're proposing a 5-story multifamily building with a ground floor community service use for Melwood. And then above that will be housing. And all units in this development will be affordable. There's 105 units. The majority of them will be 2 and 3 bedroom units. All of them will be committed affordable at a range of area median incomes, which will on the whole average to 60% of AMI. And we'll have some 30%, 40, 50, 60, and 80% AMI units in this building. And another unique feature of the building as well, which aligns with Melwood's mission, is that up to 30% of the units in this building will have a priority preference for individuals with disabilities. And then, as I said, on the ground floor, there'll be about 17,000 square feet of Melwood space. And then just to walk you around some of the features on the site, the parking garage entrance is right here off of 23rd Street South. The main building entrance will be right here, which is near where the existing historic Nellie Custis School facade is. So we can see that elevation in a moment. We'll also be upgrading the streetscape here along 23rd and South Grant Street. We'll be widening the sidewalk to 6 feet. We'll be adding on-street parking for pickup and drop off, accessible parking for visitors of Melwood and Wesley here. We'll be upgrading this bus stop here to make it more ADA accessible. And then providing a parking space on this side of Grant Street. Coming around to the back, you can see we've really treated the transition from the Melwood building to Nellie Custis Park through this kind of green buffer here. We'll also step back the building here where this patio is at the first level. This will be a patio accessible to Melwood's clients. And then up here at the second level will be the resident amenity courtyard. We also have some green roofs here on the building where it steps back as well. Now, walking you through up the building through the various floors, we'll have one level of below grade parking that'll have 94 spaces. 20 of those spaces will serve Melwood. 74 parking spaces will be for the residential use. For a total of 94, we'll have 8 accessible parking spaces in the garage, as well as some bike parking on this level. Coming up to the ground floor here, this area in blue is where we have about that 17,000 square feet of new Melwood space that opens there to the back at the patio. On the right-hand side in this pink is some shared amenity space for the residential uses. We have some bike parking here on the main level as well. Residential units lining Grant and facing toward Nellie Custis Park. Here's our main entrance right off of 23rd Street that comes straight into the lobby. We'll also have a historic marker here at the corner, just off of that entrance to commemorate the historic Nellie Custis School facade. And then right here where these lines are, this is where we'll have a 42-foot passenger pickup and drop off loading zone. So folks who use paratransit or other vehicles to access the site can do so here in a curbless environment to easily access the building. Walking up the building to the second level, you can now start to see how this building starts to set back and transition to the neighborhood around it. We have step backs here along 23rd Street, here at the corner of 23rd Street and Grant, and then on the back near Nellie Custis Park. And this portion of the building here where my mouse is, the narrowest portion of the building that's exceeds 1 story near the park. So we've really pushed up the building mass toward 23rd to provide that appropriate transition. Going up the levels, you'll see a similar typical building footprint here with the level 1 patio and courtyard below, and then units above. And something that's unique about this building too is that it will achieve not only building code requirements for accessibility. All the units will meet Virginia Housing Universal Design Guidelines, but also Melwood and Wesley are partnering up to achieve Kelsey Inclusive Design Standard certification for this project. And Kelsey Inclusive Design Standards is a guide and certification system that provides a disability forward and inclusive design that addresses the broad and diverse nature of needs of people with disabilities. And so, for instance, some features that you would see here would be automatic doors for the common area entrances, wider corridors in the common areas, as well as inside the units, are just some of the features that you would see here. And we could talk a little bit more about that if there are questions later on. And then coming up to the 4th and 5th floor, similar floor plan here. And then I'll show you some elevations and renderings of the building here too, just so you can get a feel of the project. This design was refined throughout the site plan review committee process. Our design team, kind of straightened this roof line. They softened the top of the building with this mansard style roof here and a lighter gray material at the top. Provides uniform window types. And then here in the center is where the historic interpretation of that Nellie Custis School facade is. You can see we're really echoing that historic facade through the use of stone cast entrance surround, a canopy that's similar to the canopy that's out there today, window patterns and sizes that evoke the existing facade out there today, and this parapet that really brings out that 1.5 story volume of the existing school. And as you come around to the South Grant Street facade, you can see how we're stepping back here at the 2nd level and at the 4th level. And then here you can see where we have our loading access here for resident move-ins, move-outs, and trash collection. And then coming around to the back of the building, again, you can see how there's a very small portion of the mass that's close to Nellie Custis Park here. This red brick and blonde brick element. The rest of the building is kind of pushed back. You can see the step backs here at the second levels. And here where my mouse is now, this is where Melwood's ground level patio will be. And then right above that is that second level amenity area. Coming around to the west side of the facade, here you can just really see how we push that mass up toward 23rd Street and are stepping down back toward the Nellie Custis Park and the single family homes. Then here we'll show you some renderings of the project, what this will look like when it's constructed. Again, here's a close-up of that facade. You can see the detailing on the canopy and the parapet and these window patterns that evoke the original portion of the school facade. A view down looking east toward the church and 23rd Street. Coming around toward Grant, you can better see how this building steps back to respect that view toward the church to the east. Again, how you have a little bit of a townhouse expression here on the facade on Grant Street. Again, stepping back toward the park here. And I think one more. Overall, the building that you see here is a result of a robust public review process that's been years long, starting with that special general land use plan study in 2022, culminating in this building here, which has responded to feedback from a number of stakeholders in the community and throughout the SPRC process. And so we're happy to be able to present this building, this all affordable building that will benefit not only Melwood and individuals with disabilities, but also provide housing for Arlington's most vulnerable residents. And so with that, I'll hand it back to Alex, and then our team is available for questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. So I'll just really quickly go over the handout that was sent to the commission in advance and is on the website. Obviously know the location and the proposal. I'll mostly talk about the affordable housing program. So it will be 105 units, all CAFs, serving incomes up to 30 to 80% of area median income. Attached, you'll also see that there is a revitalization area resolution. This is a similar resolution to what was approved last year at the Goodwill site. It is to get points on the Virginia Housing Tax Credit application. However, the affordable housing program does, meet all the goals of the affordable housing master plan and other supporting documents. So it will be 105 CAFs. There are 6 units at 30% AMI, 6 units at 40% AMI, and 15 units at 50% AMI. It is mostly family-sized bedrooms. All the units will be accessible, and the project will also designate up to 30% of units as priority preferences for people with disabilities and include that institutional space for Melwood, which provides the workforce development and support programs as well. So it meets many goals of the Affordable Housing Master Plan. Quickly looking at the racial equity makeup of the census tract that it's located in, there is a higher percentage of white population than there is in the county wide as a whole, and a significantly less percentage of Black population. So looking at it, the proposed 105 on-site CAFs will benefit and enable income-eligible families to live in the area of the county that is both transit proximate and contains community amenities. It'll benefit individuals with disabilities, providing both housing and workforce opportunities. In terms of who is burdened, The units will be affordable up to 30 to 80% AMI and will be affordable to households with very low incomes. There are no residents currently there, and there would be no temporary or permanent displacement caused by this proposal. For those reasons, one could say it is difficult to identify who is missing from this opportunity. We know this information based off the census tract information for the geographic area. In terms of what we can do, the county has an opportunity to consider the site plan and accompanying affordable housing program in light of these potential benefits and impacts. So the staff recommendation is to approve the affordable housing program and revitalization resolution. So that is it for me, but I know we do have some public comment.
Yes, thank you, Alex. And thank you, Lauren. Okay, so first we have Anne. Go ahead, Anne.
Good evening. My name is Anne Olmschneider, and I'm here to strongly recommend that this Melwood project be approved. I've lived in the county for almost 50 years, and in that time, I've observed many families who face the daunting challenge of finding homes for adult members with disabilities. Parents who are able to care for children at home when they are young worry about what will happen when they themselves are gone. Two of my friends had a son who was born with severe disabilities. They supported his care and development through childhood with the support of excellent school and community services. When he became an adult, they were able to place him in a small group home in an Arlington neighborhood. That group home had faced strong opposition from neighbors when it was proposed, but eventually it became an accepted part of the neighborhood. 6 residents have a place to call home where they are safe and supported. The story of the group home shows how Arlington can accommodate people from many backgrounds and experiences. Approving the Melwood plan will bring Arlington a step closer to realizing its vision of being a welcoming, inclusive community. People with disabilities can find safe homes by renting the units set aside for them, and they will be close to the wonderful services Melwood can provide. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Anne. Next, we have Audrey.
All right, I've unmuted. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to also speak about Melwood. I want to express my full support for Melwood for a number of reasons. Some were just articulated better than I could. But I think this is a particularly creative mixed-use project that allows Melwood to contribute to the lives of those with disabilities, both through training and housing, and in addition, increases the number of affordable CAFs in the county, which we all know is a really important aspect of this. Both people with disabilities, people who are challenged economically, and in my area, older adults, are in growing need for housing. The project aligns with Arlington's commitment to be a vibrant and inclusive place to live. And the fact that Melwood is designed to be fully accessible. I haven't seen the Kelsey standard, but I'm familiar with the Virginia universal designed, both for public and private spaces, will enable Arlingtonians to mingle with their neighbors. The fact that this building will have 2 and 3 bedroom units is going to be ideal for families. So this becomes a really, I hope, diverse population. One of the issues that I have heard about from others talking about the program is parking. And I will say from my experience, I go to Culpeper Garden a lot. It's a much larger complex, fit into a much more or exclusively single family residential neighborhood. And it looks like it's always been there. And while there's no on-site parking for visitors and a very small residential parking lot, I have never had to park more than half a block away. And I go once every couple weeks. And Melwood, on the other hand, is a much more walkable area. So I think parking alone shouldn't be an issue for anybody. I went on the walk through in November. I was impressed with the thoughtful design and redesign and how committed the developer is. So I think this building bodes well. And in summary, I think this project will help a couple hundred people who are in need of affordable housing in the county, and that the development would be a real asset to the community and even the neighbors. So I hope it passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. Next, we have Alice.
Good evening. I introduced myself before, Alice Hogan with Navaja, Arlington. Again, we are very excited about this project. It's been a long time in the coming. Some of the details that you've heard this evening, 105 new units in an area that has not had new units in a very long time. Right in a neighborhood where folks can feel included and part of instead of excluded and elsewhere. The idea that the mixed use component will allow Melwood to provide employment training and placement services on site to the 30 units that will be filled with folks who could participate in those activities is amazing. In addition, they will have resident services for the entire building, which Wesley Housing will provide on site, and our Stomping Ground, which is another nonprofit that supports supportive housing units in the community, will also have space on site to assist folks in the living component of their residence there, as Melwood will assist with the educational and employment. So those kind of diverse services on site are quite remarkable, and I really celebrate those components. Also, 60 of the units will be family size, including 22 3-bedroom units, unheard of in Arlington. So that's a remarkable addition to this building for families and possibly for folks who have caretakers. So there'll be many uses for those larger units. And as we know, 30% of the units will be for adults with developmental disabilities. This project was passed 10-1 by the Transportation Commission unanimously last night at the Planning Commission. This developer has worked really hard with the community while there has been pushback to really respond to the concerns of the community and also to the county board. This project went through a full GLUP study. And when that study was accepted by the county board back in May, they had a list of guiding principles. And this project today that's coming to you and will go to the county board next week has responded to all of those guidelines. It included scale and massing and materials to fit that location, emphasis on pedestrian level conditions and biophilic and green design, connectivity and safety of all travel modes, the walkability, the compact building design itself so that it would be more to the middle of this site, so as not to disturb surrounding structures and activities. And the board asked to prioritize affordability, accessibility, equitable housing. All of those issues have been addressed. And I wish if any of you had listened last evening and on other, I'm out of time. Anyway, I completely support this project and I hope you will as well. Have a great night.
Thank you, Alice. And I'm assuming, Tiffany, since you already spoke about this issue during the public comment at the beginning, that is it for our public comment speakers.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't understand the whole format.
No worries.
Please forgive me.
It is perfectly fine. We heard what you have to say, whether you say it at the very beginning or right now. So with that, I'd like to open it up for housing commissioners with any questions or feedback about the request. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to start saying I am in complete support of this project. I actually also sit on the Transportation Commission, so we did have a very hearty conversation about the concerns we have with parking, but I believe that the staff as well as representatives for Melwood did an excellent job in giving us a layout of not only the general capacity, when any issues may arise, and what mitigating situations are available. So I feel completely comfortable supporting it. I really appreciate that. I think about a quarter of the entire unit pool is going to be affordable for people between 30 to 50% AMI, which is fantastic. So I'm just really excited about this project, and I thank everyone for participating on this.
Thank you, Brian. Katie?
Yeah, I just want to agree this is an amazing project. I have people in my life who could benefit from this. And I think it's so cool that they have the resident services as well as the 3 bedrooms and such a deep affordability. I know this has already been through a very long process, probably too long of a process. So hopefully it can be passed soon. And then I just, in response to the kind of concern about school overcrowding, I'm not an expert on this, but from my understanding, I think it's better to start with the housing first and then let the schools catch up rather than trying to limit development because housing is just such a pressing issue that we need. So thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I just have a question and then a couple comments. The question is, I recall discussions between the church and the site as parking on Sundays, but for the rest of the days of the week, has there been any conversation where the parking could be used on the church site? Is it bringing a conversation, or is it parking just focused on Sundays at like the peak hour?
Hi, Commissioner Schwartz. I think I could take that. Are you asking whether the church is currently using Melwood's parking during the weekdays? And I think the answer to that is no, only on Sundays. And there's an informal friendly agreement between Melwood and the church site that has allowed them to use parking over the years. And as we move forward through this 4.1 site plan process, we've designated 20 spaces for Melwood in the garage and the remainder for the residential use. And those 20 spaces are intended to serve Melwood's employees, visitors to the site, program participants as well. And then on weekends, we can look to Melwood will consider and work with the church over time to see if there is an opportunity to provide any Sunday parking in those visitor spaces. But we're going to work that out through the parking management plan process once this building gets up and running and we have a better idea about how parking is being used on the site.
Awesome. And yeah, I guess what thinking about parking too is like, obviously the Sunday could be an issue, but for the rest of the week, there's all this parking that I presume is not being utilized. So, I'm sure there's still plenty of parking elsewhere if people want to park on the area, but I think it's just something to consider for future where, having that, again, share underutilized spaces. But just in general, just overall comments I have real quick. I think that this site it's really great to see this, especially evolve from Wellesley's previous site, which is really great, the Cadence. But I think this site, what makes it really special is that the Cadence is right next to Arlington Boulevard, which is a 50,000 a day highway. And, this site is next to 23rd Street, which is a 6,000 a day, 2-lane road. So that's a massive difference in terms of air quality and, not to say that people are not enjoying the Cadence, but this is extra special that, being in such a environment that's so positive. There's very limited multifamily units or affordable, especially that are surrounded without being in any more than a 2-lane. So that's really incredible. peak hour trip generation, net new in AM is only 8 vehicles and PM is 11. So, you're talking about a road that's doing 6,000, you're only going to add 8 in the peak hour. That's a car every 10 minutes. So that's going to be really great for the residents, and with the walkability, bikeability, and overall access to that nice gridded area for amenities. Like you've got 17-minute walk away to Oak Ridge, 8-minute walk away to Aurora Hills Library and Aurora Highlands Park. So I definitely think that's really great. In addition to being a very well designed building for residents, I think that the site plan process review is really great to make changes for the community. But I think the building itself is a very resident first program, which I think is really amazing. With accessibility, access, and the overall design. The Kelsey building standards, noise isolation, which already will be great because you're not going to have like a highway next door. So, and also the green space on the south side will be really great as well. One of the most popular parks in is Roslyn Highlands Park, which is right next to a 12-story the Queens Court building, and that is one of the most popular child's parks in the county. Every time I go by, I see kids. And with the principles of having eyes on the street, when you're next to the building, you could, parents can see their kids play in the park. So that's creates a sense of safety. So overall, I think it's a really great evolution, and fits in with the GLUP that did take a couple years to produce. So sorry, a lot of comments, but just wanted to say all the different things and how this is really integrated in the fabric of the community. So thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Other questions, comments from commissioners? Okay, and Tiffany, I see your hand is up. Did you have a question, or we don't typically take additional public comments, but if you have a question, happy to entertain your question.
I guess just a clarification, I didn't know how many of the parking spots were designated for the disabled, the 30% of the units that were designated to disabled individuals. How many of those parking spots are like for those units? Is that clear? I guess I would try to understand the balance between parking spots for the disabled units and the parking spots for the rest of the units.
Lauren, did you have a?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner McMahon. The parking on this site will be unbundled, right? There won't be specific parking spaces assigned to that bucket of 30% units. Rather, as the building leases up, Wesley will identify parking spaces for residents. We have an excess of 88 parking spaces in the garage beyond what's required. We're providing 8. I believe what's required is 4 or 6. Taylor, let me know if that's wrong, but we're providing excess 88 parking spaces to meet that increased need here at the site. And if there are folks who need accessible parking spaces, Wesley will work with them during the leasing process to pair one of those spaces with their unit.
Thank you, Lauren. Joe?
Okay, my sense is this is probably still under a mile from the metro. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're 0.6 miles away from the Crystal City Metro Station.
Okay, so I mean that's great. That should alleviate parking concerns. Also, and I'm saying that based on where I live in Roslyn, they're turning parking into Amazon disposition centers and stuff like that. No one's using their cars. Who is Melwood is the sponsor of this facility?
Currently, Melwood operates the facility, which provides programs and services for individuals with disabilities. And Melwood and their predecessor have operated on this site for over 40 years now, since the 1980s. And so they own the property, and they're partnering with Melwood as the affordable housing developer to kind of leverage this opportunity to get new space for Melwood, Wesley, as well as housing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Melwood is partnering with Wesley. I think you just misspoke.
Wesley
Housing.
Okay, I get it. Okay, thank you. I fully support this project. One question. So when I want to give my car away, do I just drive to 23rd Street and drop it off?
We would encourage you to use the web form on melwood.org or to call the 1-800 number, and we'll pick it up and make it even easier for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. That went over my head, but I assume there's some car donation program associated with Melwood. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd appreciate, all the comments and questions from commissioners, and thank you for our public commenters. I was on the original SPRC, the first meeting for this, and understand that a lot of the neighbors have a lot of opposition to aspects of the project. I continue to feel like this is kind of the exact type of project that we're looking for more affordable housing. In addition to units below 60% AMI, we're getting a ton of family size units. We're getting, the priority preference for a lot of the units with people who have disabilities. This is close to public transit, the metro. I think this is going to be a net positive for the community and for Arlington County. And I think, as one of the public commenters had said, that I think a lot of the neighbors who oppose it now will learn to live with it and hopefully in time come to appreciate all their new neighbors, and sharing, the neighborhood with folks that previously struggled to find housing in Arlington because it was too expensive. So I think this is going to be it's going to be good for the county, and I'm very supportive of it as well. Any other questions or comments before we move to a vote? Okay, and there are two items associated with this. So it is both approving the I think recommending approval of the site plan, but also recommending approval of the revitalization resolution. Do I have a motion to recommend approval of both of those items?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded.
Okay, and let's do roll call vote. I vote yes. Commissioner Wenger?
Yes.
Commissioner Blake?
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman?
Yes.
Commissioner Ventrone?
Definite yes.
Commissioner Surface?
Yes.
Commissioner McGilvray?
Yes.
Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Montgomery? Still no Commissioner Montgomery. Okay, and Commissioner Schwartz?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much to Melwood as well as Wesley Housing for the work on this, and county staff. And next item on the agenda.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Is discussion of the Community Engagement Task Force, and I had sent around a charter, draft charter, for everyone's consideration, I think late last night. Apologies for not getting it out sooner. Alex, I don't know if you're able to bring that up on the share your screen with that. Okay. So most of this language comes from our work plan that we approved last month, which essentially already established this subcommittee. But I think it's important to have a charter that sort of defines what the goals are and how this would operate. And again, the main thrust behind this is to identify how we can enhance participation in housing policy decision-making by historically marginalized communities within Arlington, groups that typically don't have a say. That's, renters, it's especially low-income residents, residents of color. So what can we do to ensure that we have more equitable participation in housing policy decision-making so that everyone's voices are heard? And to develop recommendations by the end of the year that would be presented to the Housing Commission, the full Housing Commission, who would then take that up to potentially, make those recommendations to the county board and or county manager. And then we also talked about, holding a housing community conversation event as part of this effort, this year, and working with like the county board office to plan something like that. So as far as membership, it would be, chaired by, I'm appointing Katie to be the chair of this. And then members from the Housing Commission, and then members from outside organizations and individuals, specifically with representation from the Tenant Landlord Commission, Human Rights Commission, which recently was reconstituted, and other, housing and tenant advocacy organizations, assuming that, people agree to serve on it. So thoughts on this, or anything about this that people would like to change or do not like about it? Go ahead, Karen.
Just one recommendation, maybe. So on April 26th, we have like a Live and Work in Arlington fair at Walter Reed Community Center. So my suggestion, I'll be there. If you want to sort of kick it off if you're able to, if the group is able to get themselves organized to kick it off on that day, that would be great, because you're going to have a lot of people that currently live and work in Arlington attending.
Thank you, Karen. Brian.
Yeah, I want to just identify myself with Karen's comments. I think that's really important that as a part of that task force, that the participants, namely, the chair and those who are active in the work, do try to attend these kind of events so that they actually are part of the community as much as we want to make the community a part of the county process. But I am very excited about this subcommittee. I think it's incredibly important to build more trust with the community about how the county operates, and show that there are resources for those who need them, and that we are accessible.
Thank you, Brian. And Joe.
Yeah, I added something in the chat and I sent you an email. I would like to add a fourth purpose. I think a community engagement task force of the commission is great. I'm speaking on 50 years experience with NIMBYism and every other ill of affordable housing. I've lived in this county for 40 years. I've lived through missing middle. I've lived through messaging, non-messaging, etc. I believe transparency is the best form of disinfectant. I do not think the county advertises and communicates all the good that it is doing. All right, so I would like to add, educate and engage the county residents on the affordable programs and activities offered by the county, or something like that. I think you get the drift.
Thank you, Joe. I don't have any objection to that. I don't know if other people have thoughts. I mean, it does to some degree, although the event is kind of of a similar vein. It's not just gathering information, but also pushing information out. But it would add sort of a new function to the committee or subcommittee. So I don't know if other people, have thoughts on. I think it's probably more of a bandwidth question of just like, are people willing to take that on? But I think it's good, and as long as people are willing to do that, then I support that.
And I'm not sure exactly what you said, Joe, but I think it would make sense to include that as a like recommend to the county board ways that they can better, talk about what they're doing and educate. But I think for us to actually do the education ourselves, I think would be a lot of bandwidth. So I would prefer to have it be more like recommendations.
Sure, no, exactly. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to goose. And let me tell you, the county staff is great. The county is, but aside from Arlington Now, and I'm going to call them up right after this meeting and have Scott do an article on the two projects that we did. All right. But that's what I want to do. My friends, the county people don't know what we're doing on affordable housing. If they knew what we were doing, they wouldn't have a lot of the pushback. Believe me. And we're at the door of the nation's capital, and the idiots across the river would be educated by us. All right. So.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so I'm fine with adding a as one of the accomplishments for the group is to make recommendations around how to better communicate the existing affordable housing programs and activities that the county is doing.
Right. Yeah. So I defer to you and Katie on the word stuff. Thank you.
Okay. So also, it would be great to know, and some people have already reached out through email, but just if you could let us know if you want to serve on this commission, or sorry, this subcommittee. So that is a request for all the commissioners to sort of raise your hand or let us know if you plan to serve on it.
I sent you a note on this committee.
Yep. Sorry. And even if you emailed me personally, just if you could say it during the meeting so that we can capture it here.
Yeah, I would like to be a member of this committee.
Thank you, Joe.
I will also be happy to be a member of this subcommittee.
Thank you, Karen.
I also will be a member of the subcommittee, and I encourage my fellow commissioners of color and other minority groups to join as well, so that, optically we have a diverse commission if we're trying to reach diverse audiences.
That makes sense. Thank you, Nikki. And I also plan to serve on this subcommittee as well as the other one. Any others? So I did want to mention too that, and this kind of goes along with what you were saying, Nikki. So I'd like to invite a representative from Bugada to serve, on this, and to talk to some of our affordable housing partners to see if any tenants, like low-income tenants, would be, willing and have the time to serve on this. Again, it can be a challenge, especially for low-income folks, to set aside the time to do things like this. And that's part of the challenge that this group is meant to figure out how best to address that. And I think even if we don't get all of the different folks represented on the subcommittee that we would like, the subcommittee is going to work to still make sure that we're hearing their voices and that we're incorporating their feedback into the final recommendations that come out of it. Any other commissioners who want to serve on this? Okay, great. Thank you. So, go ahead, Katie.
Oh yeah, sorry, just also a suggestion, because I think, like you mentioned, it would be great to have members of different advocacy organizations on here who could best provide the voices of marginalized, who could ideally be marginalized communities. But I think it might take time to kind of brainstorm that list and to reach out. I was wondering if maybe in our first meeting of the subcommittee, we could work on like membership and who are we going to invite and things like that.
I mean, that will be up to you, Katie, as chair, to decide what your agenda is for the first meeting. I'd like to probably prior to your first meeting invite some folks to join, but ultimately, as chair, you'll be responsible for setting the agenda and figuring out what makes the most sense to move forward and accomplish what needs to be accomplished by the end of the year. So yeah, I'd have no objection to that. So I guess we can formally vote on the charter. We don't have to, but we might as well. So do I have a motion to approve the charter with Joe's revision or amendment to it? Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Any objection to approving the charter? Hearing none, it is approved. Thank you. So very excited for this work. And thank you, Katie, for taking this on. And thank you to the other commissioners who stepped up to serve on it. I know this has been an area that the county has talked about for many years. So I'm hoping we'll have some concrete recommendations that we can make to the county board about how we can actually do a better job in this area. and not just for them, but also how we can operate better as a housing commission to be more inclusive and, you know, have more representation from diverse voices. So thank you. The next item is the Affordable Housing Ordinance Working Group. Alex, are you able to bring up that draft charter? Thank you. So this one, I know we've been talking about this for like a year at least. So last year, the county board did not want us to move forward with this, but this year it seems that they have changed their minds. And so given that there's potentially going to be a shift in who is in certain positions in Richmond, it seems like the time is ripe for us to look at making amendments to the Affordable Housing Ordinance and the Virginia enabling legislation that would get a better deal for Arlington residents so that we can essentially have developers provide more contributions to affordable housing as new projects go up. And this subcommittee would be focused on figuring out what exactly that should be. And so I've asked Brian to chair this subcommittee, and also looking at members from the Planning Commission. So Eric Berkey has been sort of tapped by the chair of the Planning Commission to be the representative, since this definitely impacts the Planning Commission and the work that they do as well. And same thing that I think it's important to have the Tenant Landlord Commission represented there, affordable housing advocacy organizations and developers. Have not figured out exactly who the wider community, members should be. But I'll be working with Brian to try to get a list of folks that we can invite to join the Housing Commission members and the reps from the other commissions to move this forward. And then the end product for this would be recommendations to the county board that they can take to our General Assembly delegation to make changes to the Affordable Housing Ordinance, or rather the enabling legislation that is a mirror image of our Affordable Housing Ordinance. Questions about this or comments and feedback? Audrey would ask if the Commission on Aging, sure, yeah, more than happy to have a representative from the Commission on Aging be a representative on this working group. Any questions, feedback from commissioners on the charter? Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, just say I'd love to be on this commission, and just a note, I think it's got some good goals, but when I think the second bullet, and I think it's fine, but I think it's just something to keep in mind when the sole focus is on increase in contributions. That's not necessarily the same as increasing the output of affordable housing as an end goal. I mean, it could increasing contributions could result in less affordable housing being produced because there's a wide variety of factors. But I mean, I don't suggest any changes. But I'm just saying that it is possible. And then just the second point is that increasing contributions from developers. I kind of think like, while wanting to increase contributions for housing from developers, that there could be, I mean, this is something that we're going to discuss, but it could result in less contributions for other aspects, public contributions to housing, such as, the infrastructure, green building incentives, all sorts of things. But that needs to be looked at. But then another thing too is that when this cost is an increased cost, and there is a lot of pass through to the residents of this new building, the renters. It's just like if you increase a tariff from a different country, the person, the increased costs, that goes across. If you have a watch imported from another country and you increase the costs to say, oh, we're going to afford money to help people afford watches, whatever, that can't afford it, the consumer buying that watch is going to pays that duty. Some of that does get passed on. So just as a note, but I do think this is a great topic. and we'll have good discussion and engagement because, according to the base density that is in our ordinance, we do not produce a lot of units. Most of the developers choose cash contribution, and most of the other affordable housing is through the bonus density provision. So it'll be interesting to see how we change with our different levers. But I just wanted to point that out there, but I think this is good, and I'm looking forward to being on this commission.
Thanks, Jason. And definitely noted. Yeah, I mean, I think in my view, the subcommittee will have the flexibility to determine what are the best recommendations. And the goal is to have more affordable housing in Arlington. Exactly how the ordinance and the enabling legislation should change, I think, is kind of up to them. If people want to wordsmith exactly how the second bullet is worded to add some more flexibility there, I'm fine with that. But I'm certainly not going to hold the subcommittee to like, well, the exact language of this charter said that. So, anything outside of that is unacceptable. But I mean, I still think we're likely to have recommendations around increasing contributions from developers. But yeah, I think in my view, it's open to exploring, many different ways to increase affordable housing through this basically inclusionary zoning program that we have. Brian, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it was just a quick comment. You kind of covered my point, but it's just that I think making the second bullet overly restrictive regarding how we discuss cash contributions or affordable housing can possibly remove some of our flexibility. But as you said, a part of the subcommittee's purpose is to kind of navigate that, and I don't intend on deciding to just go singly in one way and saying, oh, cash contributions is fine as it is, because obviously it's not, and we're not getting the appropriate amount of either cash or affordable housing, obviously, that we should be getting. And to Jason's point, currently people just choose to do a cash contribution. They won't do affordable housing. So that's obviously going to inform the conversations that we have. And I think, at least as it is, it gives us a direction of where to go, but it's not wholly prescriptive.
Thank you, Brian. Go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, I'd be happy to join this group. I have a little bit of a different take on what's being said. Just as a affordable housing developer, one of our biggest problems is getting our gap funding source, right? So this was a huge strategy when I was working in California. We would partner with market rate developers who, like you said, they don't want to build the units, right? So they were happy to give us the money to close the gap, and then we were able to finance the project. So I think there's a lot of tools in the tool chest, and I think sort of the bigger piece is often what you can get done from a state perspective, like what the state will allow within our local ordinances. So I think that's a bigger piece of it too. So it's I think getting as many tools in the toolbox is really like the most effective way that we can come at getting the most affordable housing and the best affordable housing that we can for our county. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Danny. I mean, I'm fine changing it to like just develop recommended changes to the affordable housing ordinance and enabling legislation to increase the amount of affordable housing, built in Arlington or something like that, to make it a bit broader, if that makes more sense to people. Go ahead, Brian. Yeah, you can just speak.
All right. Yeah. Process and everything. do you think it'd be worth stating it in a way to basically just kind of like hinge on the idea that we want to recalibrate the formula to the current current market conditions, right? So it's a little bit more flexible, but we are addressing kind of like the overarching issue, which is that we aren't getting the appropriate contribution we should be getting, whether that is cash or in affordable housing. So we're not.
I'm fine with that. I still feel like that boxes us in. If we want to add like other tools to the legislation, that wouldn't necessarily be covered. So I think, you know, we can change the language to something like that, as well as adding like just other things that can be changed about the legislation that would enable more affordable housing to be built in Arlington. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I was maybe say develop recommended changes to our ordinance to reflect, like, because like we're updating it wasn't updated in a while, and like obviously there's been so many changes in you know, our economic conditions, and what are, there's so many things. So it's like if we recalibrate, or and then maybe do we want, like, maybe add another bullet for additional tools in there would be necessary, like look at other tools to supplement the ordinance that could help, or maybe
So
that's too big.
Yeah, I'm cautious about adding a bullet that is additional tools outside of the ordinance. I think that it will be a big enough scope just to focus on what do we change, like what is the wording we want to change in the actual like legislation. But I think in the legislation, if there's additional tools that we want written in, like that could be considered. I just, from a bandwidth and scope perspective, I'm wary of biting off more than us as volunteers can actually accomplish over the next like 10 months, essentially. But I'm open to, I can make the change about sort of recalibrating the current market conditions, and also like exploring other changes to the legislation that would facilitate, additional tools. But I think the focus should be on the legislation. Is that?
Yeah, I would maybe recalibrate, not just market, but meet the needs of our, like, to be broad, meet the needs of our community, right? Or an ordinance with our other, how, like, how we have everything tied together, like, all that sort of thing. That could maybe make it more tie the bow on that.
I'm fine with that. Are other people good with making that change?
Are we voting on this today then?
If I was sharing my screen, I would just like try to type it out. I mean, again, we don't have to like officially approve the charter, but I think it would be nice to. I mean, we could approve it with the amended changes, and sort of, or just delegate like the final text to the actual like subcommittee to finalize in their first meeting or something like that. We could always make that as an option as well.
I like that option, but others should weigh in.
I'd rather, if possible, we try to approve it as quickly as we can. My worry is that if we kind of push it off for the subcommittee to vote on it once we have all of the members, it can maybe get subjected to a lot of jawboning, which could water this down or make it too restrictive. I feel like since we're looking at it now and we have an idea of the direction we want to go, it's preferable to approve it now versus allowing it to kind of go further where you can make it more restrictive and not be able to have the flexibility you need to actually accomplish the task.
Okay. Then give me a second and I will try to wordsmith it now, and I can share my screen. Let me see. Okay, so if it's develop recommended changes in affordable housing ordinance and enabling the legislation to recalibrate the formula to increase affordable housing production in Arlington and respond to updated market conditions. And then
Yeah, and then I would say maybe then and say and to respond to updated market conditions to best meet our goals stated in the Affordable Housing Master Plan. Maybe that.
Good.
Tied to our existing policy or like that we have.
I'm fine with that in alignment with the affordable housing master plan. Okay, and then here to make other changes to improve the tools available to the county government for affordable housing. I don't know, something like this.
That sounds good.
It's a little wordy, but okay, so develop recommended changes to the affordable housing ordinance and enabling legislation to recalibrate the formula to increase affordable housing production in Arlington and respond to updated market conditions in alignment with the affordable housing master plan goals. Develop recommended changes to the affordable housing ordinance and enabling legislation to make other changes needed to improve the tools available to the county government for affordable housing production. What do people think?
And just a quick point on the, well, I like the language as it is in the purpose statement, but just on the membership bullets, I recall it was recommended that we add
Commission on Aging. Yep.
Yes. I just wanted to make sure so we didn't miss that.
Yep.
And I think your acronym and membership should be a G instead of a B there.
Good point. Good catch. And down here as well.
Nope.
Any other changes to it? Okay, and besides those who have already raised their hands, who else wants to serve on this working group? So I think we had Jason, Brian, Danny, myself. Anyone else?
Do we know what the meeting cadence for this will be?
I would say that'd be Brian to work with the commissioners to figure out what makes sense for people.
Okay. I would tentatively like to be on it.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, and also I will add for both of these, you don't have to serve on it to show up to the meetings. And I think, I would encourage both Brian and Katie to allow any housing commissioner member to have full participation in the meetings, because especially I think having a core group that's smaller, similar to what we did for the home ownership subcommittee, is good because then quorum is easier to reach. But we also want to make sure that we have probably a majority of housing commission members versus other folks are going to be added, but we'll see. But yeah, Nikki, I think it'd be great to have you serve on this one.
I have a quick question. Does this, in terms of scheduling, do we have to work around when staff are available? Because I know these will require staff members.
Yes, so that would be working with Alex because these would be still meetings that have to be publicized in advance. The agenda will have to be sent out. It'll have to be, I think, following the same, like half of the meetings can be virtual, half would have to be in person, that we have for the regular Housing Commission meetings. Alex, correct me if I'm wrong on any of that.
All that is correct.
Would the in-person ones have to be at the same building, the Bozeman Center?
So the challenge, I think, there becomes we'd have to find a facility that could also have the online component, like the hybrid meeting. So I think it's doable, but yeah, that would be to work with Alex to figure out if it was an alternate location, how to do that. Right, Alex?
In addition, excuse me, in addition to that, there's also the technology piece. So only certain county facilities have the technology in a room big enough. And then I know we also discussed, working outside of county facilities, but that comes with security issues. So we haven't been able to do that either. So it will likely be in the Bosman Government Center, but happy to work with you and the commission on those meetings and setting them up.
And Katie, that could certainly be a recommendation from the subcommittee, is to have the county figure out how we can have more meetings that aren't at the county headquarters site, given some of the other concerns, so that, it is more accessible to the general public at large. Other questions, thoughts from folks? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the charter as amended for the Affordable Housing Ordinance Working Group?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any objection? Okay, thank you. That is approved. Again, really looking forward to what comes out of both of these groups. I think it'll be super helpful for our community and for the county. And thank you for everyone's willingness to serve on them. I know it's more work, but I think it's a time that will be well spent. Okay, next we have development updates.
Yes, good evening again, everybody. So there's one big development update before we go into the meeting schedule. So this is about Barcroft once again. It's another Barcroft update. So in February, the county board will consider amendments to the commercial neighborhoods form-based codes, the general land use plan map and booklet, and the master transportation plan map, which would collectively implement the Barcroft Master Financing and Development Plan and associated policy updates. Amendments to the codes would update the regulating plans, establish new streetscape cross sections in the neighborhood's form-based code, and introduce several text amendments to ensure the neighborhood's form-based code regulations reflect the updated vision for Barcroft while supporting the Gyre Lynch Real Estate Partners MFDP. The request to advertise for these items was approved last month by the county board. The county board will also consider the first 100% affordable new construction use permit, which is located at 4230 Columbia Pike, and which includes 110 CAFs, counting towards that 1335 number. Concurrently, the county board will also consider a reallocation of a portion of the original 150 million county acquisition fund loan to support Gyre Lynch's competitive 9% low-income housing tax credit application to Virginia Housing. As a reminder, all of the affordability terms and conditions for the site were approved as part of the Affordable Housing Financing Plan approved by the county board in December of 23, and then again in July 2024 as part of the overall MFDP approval. So just to speak a little bit more to the new construction building, it's going to be 110 units, 26 one beds, 69 two beds, and 15 three beds. So large majority family size. It will be a hybrid 9-4 LIHTC development. The 9% AHIF reallocation is about 3.3 million. And yes, 11% will be affordable up to 30% AMI, and the rest will average 60% AMI. It does demolish 14 existing units, but as stated, there will be 110 units at the new site, the new building. It's going to be Earthcraft Gold, green building certification. It's also going to include solar, a fitness room, a community meeting space, and a business center. So another Barcroft item will be on the county board agenda in February. But once again, it's not it's not a new loan. It's a reallocation of that first $150 million loan that was done back in 2023. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those. And if not, I can pull up the development updates project schedule. Okay, hearing none. So it actually appears like we are all good except for the Public Facilities Review Committee. We don't have a rep for that. I think they meet a few times a year, maybe 4 times a year. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know. But other than that, we are all full on the meeting roster going forward, and keep an eye out for the new opportunities as they come. And then additionally for the county board meetings that you all signed up for on the work plan that Kellen sent out, I'll be sending out meeting invites for all of those for the full year to everyone tomorrow, so that's on everyone's calendars. But that is it for development updates.
And Alex, can you add the years to this too? Just because I know we're going back into, I think, 2024 for some of these.
Yep.
Just, yeah, to make it slightly easier. Thank you. Cool. Is that it for development updates?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. Before we get into our last agenda item, I just wanted to quickly mention, so this happens oftentimes with our meetings, but the county budget proposal isn't going to drop until the board meeting either Saturday or Tuesday of next week. So we won't have a meeting in between when the budget comes out and then when I go before the county board on March 5th to talk about our priorities. So similar to years past when we've had this situation where timing didn't really line up, I plan to send out to the full commission my analysis of the county manager's budget, looking at all the housing items, also working with staff to answer any questions that aren't, clear from his budget, as well as send you all my recommended, ideas for what our priorities should be, and just through email, like have people reply directly to me about changes or things that they'd want to see. Unfortunately, it's either that or we schedule a second meeting, and I can do that. I think people may prefer email, but if we want to have a second meeting at the end of February specifically to talk about the budget proposal, we can do that. But unfortunately, our next meeting won't come until a few days after the work session with the county board in March. So does anyone want to do the second meeting versus just email exchange? Okay, hearing that people don't want to have a second meeting, then yeah, I will just do that. And I know what I keep hearing from county board and staff members is that this is going to be a very bad budget year. So I don't know how that will impact housing. We're also hearing at the same time that people are in so much more need of all the housing support services that the county offers. And as the federal government is crumbling around us, and the economy is likely getting much worse in DC as people are laid off and furloughed because of all the changes happening across the river, I think even more people are going to rely on county services just to get by. So it's unfortunate. The need is super great and resources may be scarce. So yeah, we'll have to do our best to recommend how we think the county should prioritize its funding around housing. Any questions about that before we move into the subcommittee and liaison reports?
Just to clarify in public meeting and rules, so we can't email more than one commissioner, even if Alex is on it, it doesn't count. We have to just email you, Kellen.
Correct. Yeah, because
Okay.
if we started emailing it to the whole group, then that would count as a public meeting that wasn't advertised to the public in advance. So that would violate our stupid rules for an advisory commission. But the General Assembly, for some reason, does not want to change it, and they feel very adamant because, yeah, it's I don't understand it, but we have to have those discussions on camera for some reason. But yeah, so I would send it out to everyone, and then everyone would have to respond individually to me, and I'd have to try to adjudicate the changes and send it back out to people, and people could send me their individual comments. But we, can't send it to the whole group, unfortunately.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's jump into our last agenda item, the subcommittee and liaison reports. Is the homeownership subcommittee still a thing?
I don't know, Kellen. That's a really good question. I do want to add, although it's not really, it's a homeownership thing. There is an affordable dwelling unit for sale right now at Bruner Place. So I have been working, and the county staff is working very hard to try to sort through all the applications, and then there's going to be a lottery. So that's good news, but it's not really a homeownership subcommittee news.
Yeah, Karen, if you want to check with staff and just see whether or not we should officially disband that subcommittee, maybe by the next meeting.
I'll do that.
Okay, sounds good. Happy to keep it going if it has work. If it doesn't, I don't see a reason to.
A lot is pending on that application that everything is up in the air, basically.
Yeah. Oh, the HUD funding, right? Which
the HUD funding. So we really
probably
don't
frozen
know.
anyways. Yeah.
So hopefully it's not frozen, but we'll see.
Given enough time, it probably will be, but we'll see if it gets in and if they don't try to claw it back in the meantime. Yeah, it's a terrible environment right now. Terrible things are happening. Okay. SITSAC, any update there?
Two things. One is that a subcommittee is formed, and I'm on it, that is starting in March to reanalyze the proposal process and dig down into that and take it apart to potentially restructure it. So we'll keep you posted on that, but we start in March, hopefully. It should be, we're hoping it's not more than about a 4-month process, but we're really undertaking a real full comprehensive look at the at the NOFO and the whole review and evaluation process from soup to nuts. And then also the tour is happening probably in April, and I encouraged, and one of the sites may be the Serrano. So I encouraged staff to reach out to Alex and as you as well, because I thought the Housing Commission might be particularly interested in that, because I also know you've been interested in the tours in general. And also the monitors for the CSB, which is the HHS funding, but that's the Community Services Block Grant, which is also managed by CIDSAC. The monitors that's federal funding, but it comes through the state of Virginia. Those monitors came and monitored last week. And so we were interviewed and observed by the state, and I think we passed. But anyway, so that was our scoop.
That's good. Thank you, Margaret. HALRB, Joe, did you have an update?
No.
Okay.
I got to get with Alex and really haven't bonded with the historical folks yet.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for a response from HALRB staff, but I'll follow up on that tomorrow.
Okay. Or if you just let me know the meeting, I'm not shy, I'll just show up.
Okay, I can also send you the meeting schedule as well.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Anything for the community services board? I don't think we have wait, did we appoint a liaison for that? I feel like we did not.
I don't believe so.
Okay. And then C2E2.
I don't think there are any updates, although we should probably look into whether we want to talk about it before it comes before the county board for the green building policy.
Do you know when that will be, Katie?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have them come back and present on the final proposal before it goes to the board. Okay, any other updates for the good of the commission? Okay, well, thank you all. Our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Have a night. Bye.
Thanks.